baby. Shout out to all of my dolls from back in the day. I think about the life of a doll, the life of my trans sisters, and I just want to say to all of y'all, I love you. I respect you. I pull for you. I pray for you. I don't care, even if I don't like you, or if you don't like me, or if we've had a falling out or whatever. I love my sisters. If we've ever had a falling out or whatever, which I don't really have falling outs with girls, but if we ever had a falling out and I see someone jumping you and I'm in my car, or if I'm just, I'm going to get out and help you, especially if it's cis folk. Okay? I just love my girls. I love my community for real. And I remember back in the days when I first started transitioning, which was like in the late 80s. There were so many men that loved the dolls secretly. I mean, in the hood, out of the hood, in Hollywood, everywhere. There were so many men. And there were two ways back then that the guys connected with the dolls. It was either on the stroll, or in New York, either the back of the Village Voice, or the back of an ad. The girls would have ads. They would pay, for ads or whatever. Or if you were a doll that was pretty impassable, but people could still tell that men, because it was always men that could tell the dolls, no matter how passable she was, no matter how much she blended into society, no matter how much she worked and was daytime, there was always a man of all nationalities and races that could clock it. And they would always come up to you in a very creepy way. They have no couth. They have no proper etiquette. They're just so hungry for you back then. Because really, there wasn't a doll on every block like it is today. Like, it just seems like on every block across the United States. But all I want to say, because now there's a trans person, there's a trans in training, like, every day. It's just like, and do I believe everybody's trans or was born with some sort of genetic genetic situation or some sort of, gender dysphoria? Nope. I just think that a lot of people are transitioning for boys. And I understand it. It's like, I get it. There's so many queer children, queer males that are bullied and harassed and demonized, and they suffer so much trauma in the first stages of their life, the first 10 years, the first 15 years of their life, that it's a very confusing place to be. Some people feel like they are born in the wrong body. Some people are claiming to be trans because that's what everybody called them when they was a kid, and they teased them, and that's what people saw. And, and I think, for me, I think that's one of the most horrible things that you can do to a child, is to project your own transphobia and queerphobia onto a child. But that's another video, because, I do believe that there are a lot of people that are born trans today, as they've always been. But I do believe that everybody should be allowed to transition. They just, but I just believe that there should be an etiquette for the dolls, whoever you are. No matter if you just started or we have to move a certain way as a collective. But yeah, I think some people transition because it's sort of like their their payback to the world that brutalized them and demonized them for being that very thing. And, and a lot of queer men, a lot of gay men feel that they can transition and want to transition. And it's whatever for me. At this point, I just feel like as long as you are doing the right thing and you're not going to be a stain to our community, I'm good. There's a certain protocol, there's certain steps and things that we all knew as the dolls back in the day. But my point is, to my dolls, I love you. Because when I think back and I look at the story about what happened with the Nutty Professor, that's what I'm going to call him. I don't want to say his name for legal purposes, but you know who I'm talking about. And I met the Nutty Professor, but I met him pre-transition. I met him when I was literally, not met him. It was sort of like, hey, hi. I had bumped into him somewhere at, when I was a kid. And, oh God, I don't want to say where because I think it's gonna, I don't want to say too much. That's what I'm going to say. But it was someplace specific that I've mentioned in other places. So I'm just trying to keep my anonymity tight or whatever. But I kind of was sort of like in passing introduced somewhere in the city when I was with an adult. I was about 13 at the time, 12 or 13. And at the time, I don't even think he wasn't even, no, he was on Saturday Night Live, but he hadn't done, I think he was working on Beverly Hills Cop, or what's the other one that he did before that with 48 Hours. I think 48 Hours might have been out at the time, but he was famous on Saturday Night Live when I met him. And I think he may have just did 48 Hours. So, he was cool. I mean, I can't say he was cool or he wasn't cool. He was just there. But that's that, right? But I just remember watching the Nutty Professor. I remember watching the Nutty Professor on TV, in the movies, and the comedy specials. And I just remember the comedy specials. Like, he did, I think the first ever skit that I had ever heard or seen of the gay community and him imitating gay men. And he did it so amazingly well, so convincingly well. Pull over. Like, he literally, but I knew that as I got older and into the community, and not necessarily in the community full time, because I was always not in the community. I was always one of the trans girls that was stealth, that would, have a job. I didn't have enough time. I just was so focused. Sometimes when I come home from work, I would be putting in, because I was a trans woman. I had just started my transition. I was trying to hold on to a job. I had had my first apartment, and I was just trying to make sure that I didn't have to go home, to live with my family. I didn't want to do that. I would have rather died than go home. So I did everything that I could to hold on to a fucking job and make sure I had an income. And so a lot of times I would be at work all day long. And by the time I got home from work, I was tired. There were some nights that I would go down to the stroll or stroll adjacent after work. If I was bored or if I was feeling some kind of way, I would go down to the stroll. Well, not the stroll per se, stroll adjacent, which was even more convenient because whatever. I was like the only dog down there. I was the only person down there doing what I was doing. But I wasn't really deliberately out there doing SW. I really wasn't. A lot of those clients just fell on my lap. It was like okay, let me just be honest. I was horny. I was young. I was like in my late teens, early 20s. I was horny. I was bored. Or I couldn't sleep, and it was after maybe putting in 10 hours. I remember going down, to a place, and men would try to holler at me, and it was like, damn, you're beautiful, oh my God, whatever, and I would make a couple of extra dollars that night. I wouldn't be out there long, and I didn't do that every day, every week, or even every month. I would do that periodically if like when you're young, you could even be in a relationship, because I'm sure a lot of those times I was in a relationship as well. You just want to live. You're just bored. You just want to, and so not to make excuses for myself, not to even pass judgment on me. I was young, period. And I would feel some kind of way, and I just was starting to develop into a woman, and I was feeling it for myself. And I wasn't about to sleep with them for free, but there was a part of me, I think my mentality and the psychology. See, one thing you're going to get on this channel is I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest about how I am, how I felt, what I was. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. My mentality then, I was broken, and there was something that turned me on about turning and seducing men. There was something about it. And I'm no different than a cis woman. There's cis women that get off on seducing men. And back then, men, there wasn't this pronounced definition of what a trans woman is. I think there's a pronounced definition of it now, mainly co-opted and mainly spearheaded by cis women, because they use it as a tool to say, okay, this person was born this way, and if you have sex with them, that means you're gay. That's the only reason why it's so pronounced. Because back 10, 15 years ago and prior, there was not this pronounced definition about what a trans woman is. Men looked at us in a biblical, mythical way. We were two-spirited, and we are. And we were two-sexed, and we are. Technically, when you really think about it, we are two-sexed. Because we embody both chromosomes. And just if you think about it in its most simplistic way, we do, and we start out female and whatever. And if you have an X chromosome, but a bunch of X chromosomes, but a Y, to me, in my mind, you are both sexes. And it's something that shouldn't be demonized. It's something that should be revered. We've been revered throughout time, throughout history. Two-spirited women. But I would go down there, okay? And maybe once every 2 months, if I wasn't too tired and I was a little restless afterward, I would go out there. And a lot of times I would just sit by the water, but as any trans woman would tell you, you can't walk outside, especially at night, without men trying to holler at you. And so I think a part of me, as beautiful as when I look at pictures of myself, and I just remembered as beautiful as I was, I probably had low self-esteem. I probably didn't like myself much. It's by the grace of God that I didn't have an addiction or didn't do drugs. But I probably didn't like myself. I probably was looking for other people to make me feel good about myself. So, so I had this stressful job. I'm over here trying to be stealth and trying to be accepted in my mind. And I didn't realize back then that you have to accept you first. But, so I did things, little things, that, you know, in hindsight, that was my youth. So I have to give myself grace. But I probably did things that I shouldn't have done. I should have loved myself more. But yeah, but let me make this clear. I wasn't sleeping with near person without being reimbursed, if you get my drift. Even I don't care how fucking beautiful you. There was some beautiful. First of all, I wasn't gonna sleep with you if you wasn't handsome, if I wasn't turned on. Like, that wasn't gonna happen. So that strengthened my muscle about, okay, no, I don't care how cute you are. I don't care how sexy and fine you are. You still gotta give me something. You know. I remember this one time, but maybe I'll talk about that in a story time, because he was. But I don't want to say too much. But I'll do a story time about this fun. Oh, he was so fucking fun. He was fun. It was scary. But I'll do that in another time. But yeah, so I would come out. I just remember that time, there wasn't this much hatred towards the doll. So you can go outside at night and not have to worry, really. There was a safety. And periodically I would meet a doll, and we would sit and we would kiki, and share tea and spread gossip. And I used to hear about the Nutty Professor all the time. But the Nutty Professor, okay, the Nutty Professor Murphy, wasn't the only one. Some of y'all's favorite action star heroes, two in particular, love the dolls. And one of them would bottom with him, and his wife would bottom for the trans escorts. They would get high and they would bottom for him, and his wife would bottom, and he had cake, and he was known for cake, would bottom for the dolls. But the Nutty Professor, there were rumors back then. But here's the thing, that started a lot of animosity between the gays and the trans too, because the Nutty Professor would do these comedy specials and pretty much make fun of the gay boys, call them F words and everything, you know, but was secretly messing with the dolls, the trans girls. And so the gay boys felt some kind of way. I mean, they felt some kind of way. This is all of what I've been telling y'all about the origins of the animosity between the gay boys and the trans girls. It's always someone else that causes it and that instigates it. It's never how we deal with each other, because usually when we deal with our gay brothers, it's all love. It's all love and family. But whatever. And so I'm sure there were a lot of gay men that felt some kind of way about watching him do these comedy specials talking about gay men, and he was getting he was bottoming, allegedly, for the dolls. Okay? My thing was, I'll save that for later. So yes, I remember where I was May 2nd, 1997. I was on a date. One of my first real dates. Like real dates with a real boyfriend that I had been with, who actually was someone in the community, the LGBT community. He was the B in LGBT, but he was someone that was a good boyfriend and a good person. And I remember we were on a date. We were on a date in the city. I know where, but I just don't want to say. I remember where. And I just remember it coming across the news wire at this. And mind you, this was like in the daytime. Literally, like we were on a date like early afternoon. And so I remember sitting across from him. We were actually at a restaurant, a West Indian restaurant, in Lower Manhattan. That's what I will say, in Lower Manhattan. And I remember it came across, and I just remember gagging. And, he laughed, and I remember gagging. Because prior to that, I just only heard stories about the Nutty Professor and the dolls. But this was the first time that it was confirmed. Not that I didn't believe the dolls, or any of the gay boys. But we all know especially a lot of the gay boys will really fabricate a story. Because it's just, it is what it is. So I didn't have receipts or proof, or it was just gossip. Now it was real. So my whole thing was, wow, like, I hated the fact that the Nutty Professor felt that he had to hide it, but I understand it. But I hated the fact that trans women were kind of demonized a little and made fun of, and I just remember there was a period of maybe 10 months after that incident in May of 1997. I remember there was like every other week, there was like a trans girl, in one of the tabloids talking about it and literally really reading him and spilling his tea. And I just was like, oh. And what's crazy to me is that I think there might have been about 5 dolls. There might have been 5 dolls who literally was just being interviewed about their experiences, their alleged experiences with the Nutty Professor. They were all, for the most part, either white or Latin or really exotic Latin dolls. And he had a thing allegedly for girls with pretty feet. Allegedly other parts of their body. He had wanted it to be specific. And allegedly he was really obsessed with the dolls. He allegedly was obsessed with the dolls and how we lived and how we were able to transition and how, all that. He was obsessed, allegedly. And I just remember slowly a lot of the dolls were retracting their story. They would retract their story. And I never for one believed that they were lying. But I think everybody back then knew, okay, they either are being, bought off or they're being threatened. Because the story wasn't going away. The story, even though the incident happened in May of 97, that story, it wouldn't go away. It was always something. He never wanted to answer questions about it. He did one news conference about it, or press conference about it, and then that was it. And I think even to this day, he refuses. That's one of the stipulations in interviewing him, is that you can't bring that up. And honestly, I feel bad for him. And I know a lot of my dolls are going to feel some kind of way about it. But I'm conflicted about how I feel about him, because he had so much power at that time to affirm us, you know. But he did what black men do when it comes to the dolls. Like, most of them love the dolls. I mean, most of them love the dolls. Even now. But they're afraid. And they don't realize that they create the environments that oppress them. But I felt bad that he couldn't come out. But I bet you he stopped making jokes about people's sexuality. I bet you that. After that incident came out, he didn't do any more jokes about gay men and anybody in the queer community. He sure enough didn't. But I felt some kind of way. I felt angry with him that he didn't defend the dolls or legitimize us in his way. You know, not that he needed to legitimize us, but we were always really operating out the shadows of society. You know, he could have easily legitimized us. He could have given girls parts in his movies. He could have put the girls, and put us in creative director roles and stuff like that. He didn't do that. He did what most men do because they're so riddled with shame. He was operating from a very dishonest place, a very secretive place. But I felt bad that it was so bad that he had to hide it to that degree. But getting back to the gay boys, I found out recently that a former gay porn star by the name of Paul Uresi, sort of was helping him clean up his image and clean up the mess. You know, leave it to someone in the G community to betray trans women. But allegedly, what I've read recently and saw recently was that this ex-gay porn star reached out to all the trans girls that was talking to the media and somehow paid them $15,000 allegedly to retract their story. And a lot of the trans girls back then were saying, I mean, this is all well documented. They would say, well, I retracted it because I never had that amount of money at once. And I needed it. Those girls, this is why I said at the beginning of my video. This is why I said at the beginning of this video, I love you. I love my dolls. Because what we've had to do just to survive, it's like we've had to work harder. We really are the most underprotected. We really are the most underprotected, and literally at the, you know, and that's why I said I love y'all, because I know it's hard. You know, I know it's hard. You know, I sometimes I judge all these girls that want to be content creators, but a girl got to do what she has to do. When I see these young girls popping up and they sometimes say things that are ignorant and they just want to be seen, I get it. I would rather them do that than have to walk the stroll. But apparently, this ex-porn star was contacting the dolls that was speaking publicly about what happened with the Nutty Professor. Because, bitch, them girls was giving all his tea. They were giving all of his tea about his fetishes, the things that he liked to do in the bedroom, and how this was something that he was a regular doing, allegedly. And so, one by one, this is what I want y'all to understand. One by one, the dolls that was talking to the media would retract their story. And wasn't because they were lying. It was because they were being paid to do it. And the sad part was, he didn't even think enough of them to pay them more than 15,000? Girl? And I guarantee you, in the 90s, that wasn't a lot of money even in the 90s. It really wasn't. But he could have at least, for those girls that he knew, he could have easily paid them more, at least 100,000, 100K. It's sad. You have, whatever. I don't want to say that. But he could have paid them more. But so slowly, one by one, these girls were retracting their stories. But not Miss Shalimar, who was the girl that was arrested May 2nd, 1997 with the Nutty Professor. Okay? She said, no, I'm not. And because he's not going to lie on me, y'all not going to make me out to be a liar. And no, she refused to take the money and retract her story. Because you got to keep in mind, she was the one that was arrested. She was the one that they demonized in the judicial system. They're the ones that she was the one that suffered, really. He just had like a little stain on his reputation. But she was the one that had to go to jail. She was the one that had to deal with the police officers and the judges and stuff like that. Okay? She was the one that lost money because she was out there working. Okay? She was out there working. It wasn't like, I'm sure, I don't know. I can't even speculate. But a lot of times in those situations, the guys, especially men of that stature, that have that social standing, would want and have the resources and money, would put you up and give you an allowance, and they become your provider, they become your sugar daddy, they become your sponsor. But I guess they didn't even have enough time. Who knows? Maybe that was something that he discussed, because I can't see him looking at that beautiful woman, Miss Shalimar, and not wanting to continue with her, because she was beautiful. Like if I was a cis man who loved the dolls and was a millionaire and multi-millionaire and had all these, this is what I don't understand about you men. Because if I was him, I would have put her up in a nice little condo somewhere on the beach. Someplace that I know that I would want to visit whenever I wanted to freak off. I would put her up in that condo on the beach. Put her up in like a beachfront property, tiny little property that's great for her, that's nice for her, someplace that I would want to visit, and I would pay her bills and help her pay her bills and help her. Where you niggas go wrong is that y'all don't think of us as human beings. You don't love us enough to take care of us. You don't love us enough to just at least be our friend. It's all about sex. It's your sexual fetish. And you don't realize, and I've said this for years, if you dudes literally looked at trans women as human beings and not your little fetish, you would want to do more. You would look at us as your friends, and you would do more for the community that you love. But yeah, Miss Shalimar went to jail. So, and everybody was talking bad about the trans girls. Oh, they're this and they're that, and there would be like all this stuff going on in daytime television was talking about it, and these news expose programs like Hard Copy was speaking on it. I'm really telling my age, child. But y'all remember Hard Copy. I'm not the only girl from that period. Hello. Okay. But yes. But Miss Shalimar said, no, I'm not taking no measly. I think they actually offered her $10,000. They were going to give her $5,000 less. Okay? And she was like, absolutely not. And so, literally within the year, about a year after the arrest, Miss Shalimar is found on the pavement in front of her building. And they claimed that she jumped. Hell no. No. Everybody that knew her said that wasn't what happened. Nobody believed that. And her neighbor, one of her neighbors said that they saw a guy dressed in all black and she was screaming. Okay? It's crazy. It's like with Marsha P. Johnson. How Miss Mag, y'all know who Miss Mag is. Miss Mag claimed that she committed unaliving. Self-unaliving. She committed self-unaliving. I don't believe Miss Marsha committed that. No. But this is how disposable we were. And it pisses me off. It pisses me off. And do you think that stopped the Nutty professor? I'm sure he was relieved that she was gone. I'm sure she was relieved. Do you think he put any money towards her funeral? No. Do you think he helped her mother and loved ones? Well, I don't know what her relationship was with them. No, he didn't help nobody. I'm sure he was relieved. Do you think that stopped him from visiting the dolls? Let me tell you something. There is a doll. I don't want to say too much. But from what I was told, the Nutty professor ain't stopped. He just got smarter. And clearly, there's one doll that I don't want to say too much about her because I don't want to. It's kind of like with how do I say his name without saying his name? It's the rapper / mogul that is antagonizing everybody online. His name is really a number. Y'all know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. He just came at Miss Tina Knowles, and he's going back and forth with Tiny and T.I. and their son. I don't want to say his name, but the dolls. We know about Miss Girl. We know about her. What these men are starting to do is that they're starting to, like I said earlier, starting to not be out there like that. They'll select one now. Back in the day, they didn't do that. They will select one doll and cultivate a relationship with them. And that's how you do it. That's how you do it. But the guy with the numbers, the number, in his name, Mr. Cent, allegedly, I want to say it, but I don't want to say it because one thing about me is that I always think about who am I going to harm. And so I'm not going to say too much because he's a mess. But I knew him. I can say that. I knew him, but not in a sexual capacity. I knew him before. Let me just shut up because I don't want to say too much. And because there's some people that's going to be able to look at this video and be like, oh, yeah. They're gonna be able to tell you, no, she's telling the truth. But, yeah, I just shouldn't say too much about it. But I knew him as well. Not in a sexual capacity or anything like that. I knew him literally. What I will say is I knew him because I worked at one of the companies that he was affiliated with. That's what I will say. And if I'm being honest, he was such a nice guy. I don't know this person that he is today, but I recognize the behavior. It's what they do. It's what down low men do, allegedly. The person that I knew 25, 26, 27 years ago was a sweetheart, was a nice guy. I don't know this jerk, but they love the dolls. They don't have a problem with the dolls, but they are so guided by and ruled by toxic masculinity and toxic black male masculinity and this code and just the ignorance of the niggas, the dusties. They are led by dusty nigga behavior and beliefs and ideologies that transfer out to these women too. Because there are a lot of women that just whatever, that uphold the patriarchy. But do you think that stopped the Nutty Professor? No. Apparently, allegedly, the Nutty Professor has been putting dolls up and helping them transition. Allegedly, I don't want to say too much. That's it. He learned his lesson, but do you think he stopped motherfucking dealing with the dolls? No. It's who he is. It's a part of his life. It's a part of his desires, allegedly. I just hate that Miss Shalimar had to lose her life. I thank God every time someone brings it up because I don't want her to be forgotten. Because for the grace of God, that could be any one of us as the dolls. There's so many with the invention of the internet and social media. Now these men can holler at us in our DMs. And they do. Now they can be up in our DMs on Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook. Hell, let me tell you something. And they can, get in where they fit in. Let me tell you something. There was one of the biggest rap, I have to make sure that I preface it. I can't say what kind of rap group it was. But one of the biggest rap groups and most influential and well-respected rap groups of all time that came out in the 90s. I saw one of their members. I'll never forget it. Now, this is when Jerry Springer, this is like also in the late 90s. This is around the time right after the Nutty Professor got arrested. And I remember, maybe I should save this for a story time. I'll give you a little synopsis. I was going inside a deli on between 54th and 55th and 10th Avenue, early one morning. And I saw him with one of the workers, one of the trans dolls that was out there clearly working. I was at my 9 to 5, and I wish I could tell y'all what I did because it was such a cool job. I met everybody. I met all of the, I met everybody. I can't tell you where it was and what it was, but it was it was one of my dream jobs. And so I was at a part, I wasn't working there full time at that location. That was just temporary because of a project that was my boss was working on. So I had to go there and I had to be there and I remember I liked working there because it was so relaxed and I loved the environment of the place. Let's just say that it was a place that created a lot of It was a place that created a lot of things that make us all happy. And it's not fashion, but it's something else that everyone, let's just say that. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. But anyway, so I remember getting to work because I had to be there at like 8:30 and I hated it because I was traveling. I had to travel from another borough to get there. And so I would always get there between 8 o'clock and 8:15. So I was there early and I hated being there early. And I remember I had waited, and this is when the internet was just like, literally you can get on, it's just like the late 90s. You can get on and you might have a few chat rooms. There wasn't really a whole lot of websites, but it was chat rooms and things like that. And I remember Black Planet and Black Voices, I think, was out then. And certain entertainment things was out then, and I would love to get on those because I would get gossip and things like that. And I think Wendy Williams had her site up too then, and so it was a new time, a new way of communicating, and it was cool. So I remember I waited till my boss and his bosses would come, and then I would make sure that he was good. I would go out to get breakfast once my boss and everybody was situated. And I wish I could tell you where it was because it was so cool. I saw so many things being created, and I met so many big people there. And it was the epicenter of culture and art and entertainment. That's what I will say. I'm not going to say anything more. And so I remember going to get breakfast. And I think back then my breakfast was turkey bacon well done with cheese, cheddar cheese, eggs, scrambled eggs with cheddar cheese, and on a bagel or a roll with some hot chocolate and some french fries on the side. Okay. And I probably, knowing my greedy ass, because, I was hormonal, because I was, taking my hormones, so my everything was out of whack. I would motherfucking have like a snack, I would have like a little muffin or a little donut or something. And then I would go back to my thing. This particular time, I'm going to tell you the story. I'm going to tell you, because it's not that long. So this particular time, I went in to get my breakfast and I saw this rapper who I knew because he was all over the radio and all over TV, a part of this group. And was he my favorite member of? No, he wasn't. I remember, actually, this is the scandal, because I was on Wendy Williams, because I remember reading on Wendy Williams that he got down with the dolls. On Wendy Williams' chat room, I remember the girls in the chat room saying that I remember one person had listed all of the entertainers that loved the dolls. And so I remember it was in the back of my head, I remember seeing his name. And then, so when he sees me inside of the coffee shop on 10th and 54th, he looks at me, I look at him, I was like, oh my God, there go that guy from the group. Oh my God, I like the music. That music to this day, if I told you who it was, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite rap groups, and one of my favorite, whatever. He was, I don't want to say he was cruising me, but he kind of was, and he kept looking at me. Even when I was trying to just mind my business, because at the time he was a big celebrity, I didn't want to make it awkward. So I just, I was like, I acknowledged him, and then I just went about my business, but he was the one that kept looking at me. And at some point, after I got my stuff to my food, and I was going to go to the register, he had gotten his stuff. And I don't know, he didn't get food. I think he might have gotten condoms or a blunt or something. I don't know what he got. But all I know is that whatever he came in there for, he had got it before I did, before I got to the register. So I'm walking towards the register. He's already online at the register, and he says to me, he says, "Good morning." And I was like, "Hi, good morning." And I forgot what else he said, but he said something that made me blush. But he turned around and paid for whatever he paid for, and came to buy, and he went out. And I remember giving them the guy from the register my stuff to ring it up real quickly, because I'm thinking he was going to be outside waiting for me. But he literally, when I got outside, he was walking. There was this really tall trans woman. I could tell she was trans from the back, but I remember seeing her a few times, and she was beautiful. She was one of them beautiful dolls. She was beautiful, but from the back, even though I don't know whether it was because she had the work done. It was just something about from her back, I could tell she was trans. But in the front, that mug was motherfucking sitting. She looked like Megan Good. She looked like Megan Good, baby, in the face. And so I remember he was walking behind her. I don't know if he told her to walk ahead, but he was walking behind her. And I remember standing on the block, because I'm nosy, okay? I remember standing on the block, watching them. And the way he did it was, she walked maybe 10, 15 steps ahead of him to make it seem like they weren't together. But they stopped somewhere center in the block, and stopped, and then went into some building. And they went into some building on 54th, if I remember correctly. So they went into some building. I don't know. I didn't follow them. All I know is that they got to honestly, I don't know if they went into a building or anything, because I didn't go that far down. All I know is that they were walking, and she stopped, and at the center of the next block over, she stopped, and then he stopped, and they quickly went into dipped somewhere, and I didn't see them on the block anymore. And so I was like, oh, she was out there. They might have went to maybe get a condom, or who knows, or something to smoke, or something to wrap, I don't know. All I know, he could have gotten condoms, could have gotten lit, I don't know. All I know is that at the time, he had one of the top rap songs on the radio. And, oh, damn, actually, I can't say it. He had, at the time, oh, no, I can't say that. Let's just say, at the time, one of his classic songs in his group was sampled by one of the, damn, I can't say it, because then you're going to know who I'm talking about. Oh, you're going to know who I'm talking about. Let's just say that even at that point, one of his, now mind you, he's a 90s rapper, but he had one of the dopest fucking beats, one of the dopest songs, in his, his group. Damn, I wish I could say it. And at that time, the song had just gotten sampled by someone. Oh, God. I can't say any more else. I can't say anything else, because then you're going to know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. But, yeah. Ironically, no, I can't say that either, because then you're going to know where I worked. Anyway, whatever. So, yes, the boys love the dolls. The black men love the dolls. The black celebrities love the dolls. Ironically, this same rapper, years later, maybe 14 years later, followed me on Facebook. This is when I used to be on Facebook, right? Followed me on Facebook. And we've had a conversation, had a couple of conversations. At one point, He was trying to convince me to because I was telling him that I wanted to travel more abroad outside of the country. He was like, "Oh, you gonna love it," because he followed me on Facebook, so he knew what type of person I was and what type of woman I was, and he paid me a couple of compliments. And he's not my type, but he's a nice guy. He was a nice guy, and clearly his whole trans affiliation, baby, was under the radar, because literally he never got caught with the dolls. I would imagine, knowing him by the way that he and I would speak eventually, because eventually when we started speaking on Facebook, like 14 years after we met face to face, I brought it up to him, and literally brought it up to him. He was like, "I remember that." I didn't ask him specifics about what he did with the doll or whatever, because that was none of my business. But he was like, I remember that. And he was like, honestly, like, I wish that I would have said more to you then. But I had already had other plans that I couldn't get out of. Something to that effect. I forgot how he said it. I think if I go back into I'm sure if I went into my Facebook, I can kind of screenshot the thing, even though he deactivated his page. But I could probably, because I know the messages are still there, I would just have to sift through all those messages that I got on that particular profile. Because I really don't want to do Facebook, but I'm sure I can pull up that conversation. Not to put him on, I would definitely, crop out his name and stuff like that, because he really is a nice guy. And I don't know, because I've never heard no scandal about him. Only time I heard anything about him was in those Wendy Williams experience chat rooms in the late 90s, when the internet was so primitive. And that's the only thing I heard about him. I had never heard no scandal, no doll has said anything, because clearly he knows how to take care of his dolls. He knows how to take care of the dolls. And by the way he was speaking to me on Facebook, it became very clear that he knew what to do and how to move within the community. And he wasn't out here being a chaser. He was just someone that, if he vibed with the doll, he vibed with her, and then he, did what he needed to do. But he clearly knew how to treat the girls. And he was a nice guy. Literally. Very, very nice guy. But yes, my whole thing is, rest in peace to Miss Shalimar. I'm sorry that happened to you. I hate that happened to you, because you had a story to tell. And it wasn't about, outing or harming the Nutty Professor, but it was about your story. I wish that you would have lived to be, to maybe get a job or have the life that you probably dreamt of. I wish that she would have lived to fulfill all of her dreams. Because here's the thing. The Nutty Professor may have even wanted to wife her. Who knows if they didn't get arrested. And if that didn't happen, you better believe another motherfucking man, whether he is white, black, Latin, Asian, would have wifed her and been a provider for her. That's the part that pisses me off, because Miss Shalimar was beautiful. Miss Shalimar was beauty personified. She could have easily had a whole bunch of providers, baby. But rest in peace, you beautiful doll. Ooh, rest in peace, my sister. I love you. And to my dolls that are out here in the struggle, do what you need to do to survive, baby. Be safe. I love you. Okay? Watch everything. Keep all of your receipts. I love you. Do what you need to do, but be safe. Do it smartly. Okay? I know this is a long video. I do long videos. That Mary J. Blige, Faith Evans video. Who keeps texting me? That Mary J. Blige, Faith Evans video is, that motherfucking video was like an hour and 15 minutes long, child. I know y'all not trying to sit through no motherfucking video, but I broke down in a very comprehensive way the beef, or not the beef, but the falling out of Mary and Faith. But I hope that y'all sit through this video, because this video, I put a lot of heart and passion into it. Anyway, I love y'all. Rest in peace, Miss Shalimar, and to any doll that's lost her life in the struggle. God bless y'all.